If you're thinking about selling your home, you might have heard the term home staging mentioned by your real estate agent. And even if you haven't got to that point yet, you've probably read about it somewhere on the internet. So a lot of people have a question is, what is home staging? Is it worth doing? How much does it cost? All those kind of questions. So I organised an interview earlier this year with Phoebe Shorter from Foxy Home Staging in Queensland. And she talks us through all the basics, what it is, how much it costs, why you should do it, or for that matter, not do it. Hope you find it useful. Enjoy. I'll be back to you in a sec from probably 3 or 6 months ago. Speak to you soon. Okay, so welcome to the Property Scoop, Phoebe. Maybe you could start by telling people your name and where you're from and what you do, and then we'll sort of dive into the topic of home staging.
Absolutely. So I'm Phoebe Shorter. I'm the director of Foxy Home Staging up here in Brisbane. We are a smaller family business up here, but we have 11 employees now, so we've rapidly expanded over the last 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I suppose the one big question a lot of people are going to have is, what is home staging? And in fact, I had a friend of mine, I put a post up on Facebook asking for questions for you, and one of them said, what is home staging?
What is it?
So, yeah, give us the 60-second version.
All right, so we are a service that you engage when you're ready to sell your home. We will bring in furniture and fluff and present your home, make it marketable, and make more people fall in love, so there's more competition and you get a better price.
Mm-hmm. When you say
my elevator
fluff,
pitch, fluff,
cushions. Fluff. What's fluff?
Yeah, all the bits that we don't live with. So cushions and artwork and Euro pillows and candles and beautiful fluffy towels for the bathroom and greenery, all the stuff that we don't have because it ends up on the floor.
Okay, cool. And how on earth did you end up in an industry like
that? So my background's actually radiation therapy and cancer care.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was doing my PhD and working for
natural segue to home staging, of course.
I know, right? Yeah, nice and smooth, that transition. So yeah, I was doing my PhD. We were doing developments in the background and paying for stylists to come in and style those developments. And it wasn't a good lifestyle balance working at Q Health. So I thought, well, I'd rather do that, and that looks like fun. And then addressed everything that I didn't like about the experience of engaging a stylist, and I did the opposite, and that's how business has grown.
Cool. And how long has the business been running?
5 years.
Okay. And where do you cover? You're located in Brisbane, I believe. What area do you cover? Just Brisbane Metro?
No, so southeast Queensland. So basically we would go up to Sunshine Coast, out to Toowoomba and down to the Gold Coast. We're down the Gold Coast often. We're based on the south side of Brisbane. Gold Coast isn't really that far, but yeah, here, there and everywhere. Okay.
And who is typically contacting you guys to engage with your services?
Initially, real estate agents were the group that we would develop a really great relationship with. However, with the industry growing in Brisbane so much over the last 3 years, we're getting more homeowners reach out to us rather than real estate agents.
Okay. Can you tell me a bit more about the homeowners reaching out to you?
Absolutely.
What are they saying to you?
Down in Melbourne and Sydney, home staging is a normal part of the process. It's a normalised part. If you don't do it, it's a negotiation tactic. It's very much ingrained into the way you sell a home down there. In Brisbane, I think very similarly in Perth and the other states in the country, we're still a developing industry. So people know of it. They know that it can help, but some people don't really appreciate the value that it can bring. You only sell a home generally once or twice in your lifetime, and it's changed significantly over the last 10 years how you do it. So those owners would reach out, and mainly they're asking us, how do we do it? What's the process involved? How much is it going to cost? Can you come and help?
Right. And so do you guys only provide the service, or like if someone just wants some advice over the phone, can they pay you for that kind of thing? Or
yeah, they can. And that's something that I wanted it to be accessible to everybody. So we actually do something a little bit different to other styling companies. We have complimentary consultations. Real estate agents don't charge for evaluation, so I don't see why we should charge either. We'll go out, have a chat, and honestly, if it ends up with us giving them advice and they present their home better and get a better sales price, then that's a great outcome for them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So walk me through the process for someone who's never used a home stager before.
Yep.
How does it actually work? And I suppose maybe before we do that, why? Dive a little bit more into why you're doing it and what the benefits are for the homeowner.
So if we look, basically the way we live in a home is completely different to the way that we should sell our home. So we have more of the comfort factor. We have all our personal bits and pieces. We have the furniture arranged so that we can watch the TV, and not necessarily so that we can walk straight through a door. We block off doors to have our big chase lounge bit so we can have a nice big comfy home. And that's the way that we should live in our homes. We should be comfortable. But when we're selling, we need to highlight the best features of our home. So we do need to consider downsizing the furniture, changing the arrangement of the room, definitely taking out personalised bits and pieces, because if we look at the psychology of a buyer, we need them to feel comfortable in the home and imagine them in the house rather than you, because they need to see it, they need to fall in love with it, and once they're fallen in love with it, there's no brainer when they're going to put forward an offer. So that's why we concentrate on the lifestyle element of your home, and why we take away the personal elements, not taking away the character or the love of your home, but taking away those personal elements, because it still needs to be unique and characteristic, because otherwise no one's going to fall in love with a vacant home because it doesn't have that love. It needs to still be there.
So when you say take away the personal elements, what sort of things are you talking about?
Pictures, photo frames, all the magnets and bits and pieces on your fridge, all the bills and bits, or spoon collections, or any sorts of collections, basically, because normally they're really cluttered. All your bills on your desk, making sure they're all cleared up and tidied up. All the little elements that we have on our bedside table, all those little bits and pieces, the trinkets that really means stuff to us, but not necessarily to somebody else.
Okay. Now, I had a friend recently who's sold. Not the first time she'd done it, but the first time a long way. And I was giving her a few tips around the staging side of things. One of the things that she really balked with or didn't understand was the whole idea of depersonalising the property.
Yep.
How do you deal with that when you're talking to people? Maybe they don't understand why they should do it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is a fine line. There's a couple there, so you don't want to take away the personality from the home. The home still has to stand on its own, and it is. So you can go too far. You definitely can take too much out. But it's the personal elements, the pieces that I can see that you graduated from this university. I can see that your kids go to this school. I can see that you have a doctorate and you're sitting. That's where you work home from that home office. Those pieces are the ones that we will take out. It's also a fine line when we're having a chat with somebody when they're still living in their home, when they're selling, and we're trying to find the balance of what we're going to keep versus what we're going to store, because it's an emotional time and there's sentimental value to a lot of the pieces someone has in a home. So making sure that we find a balance that works for a homeowner to make sure the home is still functional for them as well while they're selling, versus presentations for first impressions. There's a balance. It's all a balance.
Yeah. So when you're taking stuff out, what do you actually do with it?
So we are a little bit different. So in Queensland, it's a little bit different styling companies in other states, but there's a option to hire furniture or own your furniture. So we are one of the only styling companies that actually own their furniture. We've got a warehouse full of furniture. Right. But in the same token, we also own our trucks, and our employees are full-time employees. So we've got a team of full-time removalists that work with us.
Oh, okay.
So when I say to somebody, we need to store your furniture, we actually store it for them. Our boys will go in, take out the furniture, we style with our furniture, and then we take their pieces to National Storage or Storage King or a storage facility, which then enables them to take it from that storage facility to their new address when they find it. Right. So they're taking away that feeling of two moves. Yeah.
And so in terms of, obviously you guys are coming in, you're going to pick up all the big heavy stuff and move that out.
Yeah.
What's the small stuff? Is that the owner does that, or you do it for them? I mean, how's that handled?
No, we get the owners to pack up all the smaller stuff, and that's because there's a lot more breakable pieces. It's the first start of their decluttering process, and most of that stuff probably won't end up going to the new house. It's just much easier for them to do that process than for our guys to do that for them.
Right, but you take the boxes with you to put them on storage?
Yeah, we do all the other bits. We take them off-site.
Okay. So we've got the house decluttered.
Yep.
How do you decide what's going to be done to the property? Because, I mean, every house is different, obviously. Every
Yeah.
market is different. Doesn't matter where you are in the country. There's some uniqueness to each area, I guess.
So this is done in tandem with the real estate agent often. I'll have a bit of a chat with them. They often will start that decluttering conversation. So they're the first port of call. They'll say, hey guys, you really need to do these things. We come in and have a consultation. We have a chat. And then the whole point of us is to make it easy for a homeowner. So that's generally why they'll engage us, because we'll make it so much easier. We do all that heavy lifting and we get it all done. The pieces that we're going to stay behind, it really depends on the pieces that they have in the home. Are they big and heavy Balinese, or are they mahogany timbers, or are they the big tall buffets and hutches? They're the ones that we generally take out of a house. What those pieces do, whilst they're amazing and family friendly and functional and they last a lifetime, they suck up all the light and they make a space look really, really small. So generally darker coloured furniture, leather lounges, the black leather lounges, the big bulky recliners and that big furniture, we get that out and we bring in smaller slimline stuff. Cream colour fabrics, because they photograph really nicely, they help to reflect the light, stuff that we generally wouldn't buy if we had kids. I know I don't have it at home.
Yeah, I get that. Or messy pets.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, we've got a cat issue with cat fur everywhere. It's a nightmare to keep it clean.
And it gets stuck in everywhere too.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do you decide what kind of style goes in the property?
Yeah, so for us, the home dictates the style. We do have homeowners and agents that sit there and say to us, look, I want to see a Scandi, or I want a style, I want to see Hampton style. This one would be perfect for coastal. But when we're sitting there looking at a 70s brick home, those styles aren't going to complement that home really well. And you need the home to sing for the home itself. So that's what dictates the style for us. If it's a 70s brick home and it's going to be sold to a family, we need to go with something traditional and warm that's going to resonate with a family. If it's Bayside and it's a gorgeous Queenslander, you could go coastal. You might be able to go Hamptons if it has the right style internally. It really depends on the home itself. If we're doing an integrated style, which is what you're talking about before, when we're using the client's furniture and they're still living there, that will also come into consideration, because if you've got more style furniture leaning towards one end, it's easier for us and more budget friendly for us to bring in furniture that complements it than to completely scrap everything and bring it in new.
So how do you handle the situation where people are still living there? Because I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that most clients you speak to are still going to be living in the house while it's being sold.
It's about 50-50.
Okay.
So a lot of people, because of investment properties, for example, we now get rid of the tenants, and new builds, developments, all those sorts of ones that are all vacant. The smaller townhouses and those ones are generally someone's upsizing, so they've already moved out and they're then selling their townhouse, which is a lot easier to do when you're not living in it. It's generally the big family homes that have people living in them, or older people who are about to downsize and they're still living in that really big house. So they're the ones. So it's generally in the older situation, the older couple scenario where they're about to downsize, the rooms are empty. They haven't got enough furniture now to fill the house, because all the kids have moved out, taken like bits and pieces with them, and now they don't have enough stuff. So we're coming to fill the gaps. So that one's really, really easy. If there's some older pieces of furniture, they already know, and they're already planning to switch it out and get something new for the new smaller townhouse that they're moving into. So that's generally a pretty easy conversation. When it's a family, it's a little bit of more of a balance, like I was saying before, to find something that's still kid-friendly, that's going to be safe for the kids, so obviously avoiding glass surfaces, making sure it's all timber and rounded edges, all
Nothing
that sort of thing.
that's heavy that can fall on top of the children.
Exactly right. Anything secured to the walls, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. And how do you find, like I would have thought if you come into a family home, for example, particularly with kids, that's got to be a bit more of a challenge than the average one. How does that work out?
And I've got 3 kids at home. My kids are 3, 4 and 5, and I appreciate the stress that it can bring to those owners. So we try, then again, it makes it easy. So we say, head out to Brekkie. We come in, I give them a list. If they can pack up the things I'd like them to pack up, that's awesome. And then we rearrange the rest of the house while they're out at Brekkie, get it ready for photos. So we do little bits that make it easier for them, like they keep the linen afterwards. So they don't have to worry about the kids messing it up or making it dirty. We incorporate that into the cost. They get some nice, beautiful linen at our trade discount price. And everybody's happy because we get gorgeous photos and then they get great linen. We send a catalogue of images through that night so they can replicate everything. Everything's kid-free and friendly. Everything is fully insured, unless We get a highlighter or a permanent marker onto a coffee table. Those sorts of things.
Sounds like you're
covered.
speaking for experience there.
Yes, that's actually, and truth be told, that's the only example I have to give you.
Okay.
A highlighter onto a coffee table, but we just gave it a restain and it was all good. So it's just that stressful element of living in a house when you don't normally have all those bits and pieces on the coffee table and your dining table, and you having those there. That's a bit tricky. Having kids, yeah.
So you've talked a couple of times now about doing your job and then the photographer comes in.
Yep.
Obviously they come in, they take the photos to go up on websites like realestate.com.au or Domain, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I would assume that just because the photos are done, that's it. You're not packing things and moving out. It stays there while the home opens are on, that kind of stuff?
Correct. So we do an 8-week hire period. The furniture stays there for 8 weeks or until there's an unconditional contract. There was a period of time in Brisbane when things were stretching out and the furniture was being needed to stay there for between 6 and 8 weeks. First home buyers contracts were falling through. They were needing 1 or 2 contracts to come through to get a successful one when the bank valuations weren't holding up.
Okay.
That isn't the case at the moment. On average, everything's coming back at around 5-ish weeks. So contracts are going on the property straight away first weekend.
It's not hard selling houses at the moment, is it?
It is not, but there are some fantastic prices, and that's the difference. So, but yeah, that's the idea is it stays there for the 8 weeks or until there's an unconditional contract. Just because if you do the photos, it's just only in the photos. It's the same as virtual styling. You need to have it in the property for that first impression and that wow impact.
And how do you, or how have you and or your agent clients handled the whole COVID lockdown, can't go into a house and do a home open kind of thing? What happened there?
We have been really, really fortunate. We haven't had a really strict lockdown up here. We had like a 2-week period where 2 lockdowns where we could only do vacant properties. So fortunate that those 2 weeks we only had vacant properties locked in. Even if we had maybe a partial or two, like an integrated style where we did delay, but the photographer delayed because they couldn't photograph and the people were home, and you can't ask someone who is at home doing the right thing to go somewhere else and do the right thing. Like, you just can't do it. It's common sense. So we're fortunate we could still operate with the vacant properties. We would give maybe 2 weeks free to bring somebody else's vacant property forward, and it did work. So we actually had a couple of clients who said, oh, you know what, we're not going to style. We're going to see how the market goes. And then now with all these virtual inspections and everything happening over the computer, Zoom calls, Facebook, when you do it on a vacant property, it just doesn't work. You can't get the depth. You can't figure out the space, particularly in those small units and townhouses. Yeah. So then we'd style and it sold the same weekend. So it's interesting to see what's happening in the background.
It's interesting you say that because I remember when my partner and I moved into this house, I couldn't get in to see the property at the time, and I don't remember if I saw a photo online or she showed me something, but the bedroom to me looked really small because there was no furniture in it.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, really small. And then when we actually moved in and put our bed in, we've got a big king size. You get in and actually see the furniture. Yeah, well, you get in and you see furniture in it, and you actually appreciate how much bigger it really looks in real life.
Yeah.
So I can see the advantages of wanting to put furniture into empty places in particular.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
All right, cool. So I've got a couple of questions I wanted to throw at you from various friends and fans of the website.
Wonderful.
So John asked me, do you have any hard local data in terms of increased sales price or shorter time on the market that supports the cost of staging?
All right, so if I was to come and give you a dollar value local market price, that would be a biased number because we don't do any valuations before it goes, like an actual bank valuation before it goes on the market, before it's styled versus after it's styled. So I can't, if I give you a dollar valuation, that's not accurate. So that's not a fair representation. I used to be able to give you an average days on market. However, everything in Brisbane now is selling so quickly that isn't it's not a justified option because again it's not reflective. I have plenty of case studies that show the difference of one that we have styled versus ones that we haven't styled in this current market when they were trying to use the market to carry the competition, and it hasn't worked. We've styled that next week, it has sold with the same marketing team, the same agent, everything has not changed, just the property has been styled. 2 situations, one was a 2-bedroom unit that was seen before We styled it in a city suburb. It's about 10k out of the city, and it had a very, very small living space.
Okay.
It had one offer pre-styling. We styled it post-styling. The same client, the same person that put in that offer pre-styling, put a offer post-styling on the Saturday. We styled on the Friday, 50,000 higher than what he had originally put in. Sold to him. That was an international investor, that one. And that was, small little townhouse. And then we've got one in the city that's a 4-bedroom big house, $180,000 higher to the same buyer, same offer, same buyers again. So that one, the owners actually lived in that when they initially listed it, and it was very cluttered. It had a grand piano in this where the dining table should have been, and it was you couldn't actually appreciate the house for what it was. There was too much stuff to look at. And they're local buyers, those ones, so they actually went on site, and then we styled it, and then that's the difference between the prices that they offered pre and post styling.
Wow, 180,000. That's a nice jump.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that kind of leads me into the next question. Now, this one I realise is going to be relevant to you and your market, but it could be different in Australia. When people are looking at doing this, what kind of costs are you looking at? And obviously, I'm sure there's a low entry level and a high end. So there's a big.
So there's always going to be someone who's the most expensive and the cheapest in the market. For us, we sit in the middle. We're right smack in the middle. Again, there's differences in Queensland versus Melbourne. So if I look at Queensland versus South Australia, our prices are, so Queensland's prices are higher than South Australia. South Australia's prices are a lot cheaper. And I think that comes also down to things like warehousing. All the prices are different as well. The WA's prices are a little bit higher, but that comes down to logistically getting their stock across from the east border, the eastern side of Australia, is a lot more expensive for freight. So they need to be able to cover costs and that sort of thing. But for us, where our pricing sits, for a 3-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom, 1-living house, they're looking at between $3,000 and $3,500, inclusive of GST, to get it completely styled.
That's not bad.
And then for a 5-bedroom, 3-living area house, it's between $5,000 and $6,000 to get it completely styled. The prices all depend on how big those living spaces are.
Yeah, and what do you get for that money? I mean, is it a certain number of pieces of furniture, or you take whatever you have that you need for the job and that's it?
So that's one of the things that it's taken a long time for me to be able to get the idea out into the market, is that for us, we're not a furniture hire company. So when I give you a price, it's not you're hiring the furniture for those rooms. We're a styling service company. So we're a wholly encompassing styling service. So we bring in everything that property needs. So we're talking about as much furniture as those rooms need to present beautifully without feeling sparse or empty, but without being overcluttered. And if that means we bring in options, so for a room that might look like it can only take a single ensemble, but we have a double just as a backup, that's what we do, because we need it to present perfectly. So we will go out of our way to make sure that everything that we get there is perfect. And if I've only charged you for a single ensemble bedroom and it ends up being a double, you don't have to be charged any extra, because I should have quoted correctly at the start.
Yeah, and so when you're going out to do a quote, I assume you have to go out, have a look. Do you discuss the options with the client, and do they get an input on it, or do you kind of tell them, well, this is what I think you need to do? And it's a
little bit of combo. It depends if they're living there or not. I don't actually have that discussion with them there at the consultation. There's so much that happens during the sales process. If I have that conversation, it's so overwhelming. They don't remember it, and it becomes more stressful. I take it away and I write it all up. So we send quite a comprehensive plan through to the vendor. They can have a look. If they want input, absolutely they can. If they're worried that something, just how they've functionally used a bedroom. I know that if you put a double bed in there, I can't open the wardrobe door. They can definitely let me know those sorts of things. But as far as the layout and how many seater sofa we should use and all those sorts of things, we don't go into those discussions, because again, it needs to be what the house needs.
Yep. And so those prices include you going out, styling, and then removing everything when it's finished, and obviously.
Yep. Yeah, so the install, the collection, the styling, the professional hanging of all the artwork, the removal, the insurance, absolutely everything that's needed, nothing gets added on at the end.
Yeah. And so I think you said sort of 3 to 5, 3 to 6 ballpark price?
Yeah, so honestly, depending on how many living areas are in a house, because then obviously that's a time-based decision that needs to go into every living room needs more time for the truck, all that sort of thing. So that's where the pricing comes in.
Yeah. Which reminds me of a question I forgot to ask you earlier. Do you do every room, or do you just do some rooms depending on the situation?
Yeah, so again, dependent, but for every single client that I send through a quote for, if the house is vacant, I send them through an option for one that is fully styled, and then one where we focus on the areas that are going to be photographed. And normally that's the living spaces and the master bedroom, plus the kitchen, the bathroom, and the outdoor. And that budget has to dictate your decision. Like, if everybody would love to have every house styled fully, but that can't be the case. If you've got a townhouse that you have a loss on, we can't go full gun ho on that. So budget has to dictate.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so another question. So Charmaine asks, what percentage of what you want to sell for is good to spend on staging?
Yeah, that's a very long piece of string.
Yep.
So honestly, the one that I really push. So we've got our townhouse and unit packages. Townhouses and units they benefit the absolute most from styling. Those small spaces, they benefit greatly. So we've got our package. Our one-bedroom townhouse is $2,200, and you need to have that return on investment. Then that's what we really focus on. But as far as a percentage, we don't work off a percentage of a sales price. For me, if it's not warranted, if I don't see you're going to get a return on it, then I won't recommend it.
Okay. Have you run across occasions where it's not worth it?
Yeah,
I assume that someone's got a fantastic looking place already.
Yeah, absolutely. If they've already, that's generally the higher end homes that you come in and they've already got a designer who's come and helped, architect design. You walk in and you're like, honestly, I really don't feel that that's necessary. I went to one on the weekend. It was a little 3-bedroom unit and she had all the beautiful big pieces. She just needed the fluff to tie it together. So I gave her a recommendation at Adair's. I gave her my contact at Freedom. I gave her a rundown and a shopping list and she went and purchased the pieces herself. For example, we go into a property and they've just got this gorgeous big house upstairs, a nice big outdoor living space, and then they've got this concreted area underneath where they're not sure. Then they want to spend the money on presenting that right, so getting outdoor furniture into it, but nobody's ever going to use it for that space, and it's not worth $1,000 to get in 3 outdoor settings. It's definitely worth leaving it empty. So that's where being honest with the recommendation needs to come in.
Okay, cool. So obviously you're in Brisbane, so that's not going to necessarily be easy to engage you guys for this if you're not near you guys. So if someone's anywhere else in the country, could you maybe walk through for someone who wants to sort of get started or maybe try and do this themselves? Can you give us some of your best tips that you find that works well?
So I don't have an education or a background in this industry. And I honestly don't think you need to have it. So you need to obviously have an understanding of layout for design and first impressions, which is totally different to interior design. And you need to have an understanding of business. So that's the biggest thing. So having those, a bit like the love of building relationships and customer service, and then having somebody, and this is not me in our relationship, this is my husband, understanding all the numbers and the background and Excel spreadsheets and all those sorts of business-minded things, being across those things. So if you're wanting to people always ask what courses they should do, and my recommendation is never a design course, it's always a business course, because you need to be across your numbers. You need to understand, if you're purchasing furniture, how many installations it's going to take for you to pay those jobs, to pay that furniture off. So then you know your limits on how much you're allowed to spend on each item individually, and what bringing staff in when you're expanding, what that means is how many extra jobs you need to fit in every week. Because if you don't have an understanding of that, you just become this really big giant can of worms that can explode.
Yeah.
Implode, actually.
Even better. Actually, the question I actually asked, I think you misunderstood my question. My apologies for not getting it clear. I was asking if you were giving somebody, a home seller, tips on how to do their own staging.
Okay.
That's what I was asking.
Okay. No. Cool. All right. So if they're selling their own home and they'd like to do some bits and pieces themselves, so we very conveniently have a blog that will help run them through
Yes.
all the different rooms and spaces and the best how to present their beds, everything like that. But basically, what you need to do is you need to stand at the entry point of each room and present it in its best light from that very first spot that you walk into the space. Ideally, we don't see the TV. We walk in and we see the beautiful big sofa, and your eye needs to settle in one spot, because if we look all over the room and we can't decide what to look at because everything's fantastic and it's all amazing, there's too much in that room.
Right.
So that's, if you want to do it, you absolutely can do it, and there's so many stores that make it so accessible to be able to do it yourself. You have to take it all from that entry point of the room.
Yeah. And I suppose, how do you deal with the fact that some people's taste is not necessarily the same as everyone else's?
To be honest, it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be a buyer that's going to come through whose taste is different too. As long as you avoid those polarizing things. So I recommend, don't use those bold reds and those lime greens and those sunshine yellow colors, because they photograph terribly, but they're also colors that people either love or hate.
Right.
We avoid religious pictures, because you either are or you aren't. They're the pieces that we tend to take out and think about, because they're polarizing. So we're trying to encompass as many people as we can, rather than a select few. So it doesn't matter if your taste in furniture is different, because most people do not or do like you're not polarizing people.
Yeah. I guess I would have thought the key thing would be remembering that you, the homeowner, are not the customer. Your taste is not relevant. It's the buyer that's important.
It definitely. But if you're purchasing pieces and you need to keep those pieces for your next home, it's a tough line thing to travel if you're going to go buy pieces that someone else loves, not necessarily you.
Yeah, good point. So is renting furniture viable in that kind of scenario?
Correct. And that's generally why someone gets us in, because they don't know what colour palette the next house is going to be. They don't know what size walls they're going to have. So if they go buy artwork and it's not going to work in their house, well, it's a waste of money. If they buy grey furniture and their new house is cream, well, then it's a waste of money. If I buy a 3-seater sofa and it's not big enough because I go into a unit, it's not. So that's why.
Right, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so this is always one of my favourite questions. What haven't I asked you that I should have? What's a conversation you often have with potential clients that is important that maybe I haven't asked you about?
Oh, that's a great question. A lot of people ask me if not an important question, but does my house look like I make everyone else's house? And the answer is no.
3 kids, no.
I own 1 cushion. But honestly, you've covered the main things are how, and how can I make it happen, and is it easy? And what is the price? They're the questions I have with every single client. And then at the very end, is there a refund when it sells early?
Oh, yeah?
which is fantastic, but no, there's not. Because obviously we've done the job and it's done amazingly, and wouldn't you love it if your agent reduced their commission when the sale was easy too?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Tell us a little bit about your website for people who want to learn more, because you mentioned your blog, for example.
Yes, so foxyhomestaging.com.au. Eva keeps it all up to date, Eva and Cody. So there's heaps of video. There's our YouTube channel. We give it our weekly Foxy TV that comes up, as well as the blog that's updated a couple times a week. So always stuff to read and watch out for. And Instagram and Facebook.
You're all around the place. So
Yes, we are.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, cool. I'm just looking here on your website at the moment. So, yeah, so lots of cool things there in the blog for people that are looking for some tips, but also seeing what you guys have done in terms of work. So,
yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you, Phoebe. I appreciate your time. If someone has any questions or they want to talk to you guys about maybe working with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
But my email is the best way, or my phone.
Yeah, and that's for someone who wants to maybe hire you guys to do their staging.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, great. Thanks, Phoebe. That's awesome. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.